I'm a single mom raising my little boy, Mark. When all of this happened, he was 5 and I was 27. We were living in the old house my grandparents left me, tucked inside a quiet neighborhood filled with older folks who kept to themselves. It was the Christmas season, the kind where every store window looks warm and bright, so I took Mark to the mall to do some shopping. We grabbed a few gifts, picked up something for my dad, and then stopped by McDonald's for burgers and ice cream. On our way out through the south exit, a mall Santa stepped in front of us. He crouched down to talk to Mark, asking what he wanted for Christmas. Mark said he wanted a Nintendo Switch, which made my stomach tighten a little because that was exactly what I had been planning to buy. Santa let out a laugh that felt a little too loud, gave me a wink, then stood up and started talking to me while Mark held my hand. We chatted for a moment, and when I joked about needing Santa's help as a single mom, he leaned in way too close and asked if Mark knew the song, "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus." Then he tapped his cheek, waiting for a kiss. I leaned in for a quick, harmless peck, but he suddenly turned his face like he was trying to kiss me on the lips. I pulled back fast. My stomach dropped. His laugh after that wasn't warm or friendly. It was quiet, slow, and off. I grabbed Mark's hand and walked away. Santa called out, "Merry Christmas," as we left, but when we drove past the mall exit a minute later, he was already gone. I didn't think too much about it. I should have. We got home, locked the door, settled on the couch, and put on a Christmas movie. Then the doorbell rang. And I wasn't expecting anyone. It was way too late for anyone to be going door to door, so I told Mark to keep watching his movie while I went to answer it, trying to keep my voice steady even though something inside me already felt off. I called out, asking who it was, and a man's voice on the other side said, "It's Santa," in a tone that made my stomach drop hard. I told him if he was the mall Santa, he needed to leave, or I'd call for help, but he said I dropped something out of my bag, and he just wanted to return it. My hands were shaking when I asked what I supposedly dropped, and he said he didn't know, acting like he wasn't trying to dig into my business and pleading for me to open the door so he could hand it to me. Every word made my skin crawl. I told him to leave again, louder, then grabbed my phone and called mall management to report him. The man on the line told me they didn't hire any mall Santas at all. Whoever dressed as Santa that day had shown up on his own. The second I heard that, something inside me twisted tight. I went back to Mark, but my mind was racing. My heartbeat felt heavier and heavier, like my body knew something before my brain did. After a few minutes, I stepped into the kitchen so Mark wouldn't hear me, lifted the blinds and stared into the dark. The kitchen light made it impossible to see anything outside, but then I heard it, loud and clear, a man shouting, "Ho ho ho," right outside the window. A cold feeling rushed through me. He was out there in the dark, close enough to see me standing there. I had no choice anymore. I called the police and told them a man dressed as Santa had followed me home. I told Mark to stay put and keep watching his movie while I talked to the officers on the porch. They took a report and left, and having them there gave me a bit of comfort, but only for that night. A few nights later, the doorbell rang again around the same time, maybe even later. Mark was asleep, and I was watching a show in the living room. The second the bell rang, I turned off the TV and went upstairs without making a sound. My room connects to Mark's, so I stayed up there with him. The doorbell didn't ring again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was standing out there, just on the other side of the dark. It wasn't until the next morning, when I opened the front door, that I saw a note taped to it. A typed note, clean and cold. I froze. It said, "I'll be honest, I'm sure you know who this is. I didn't mean to scare you the other night. It was a long shift, And when a pretty lady talks to you after pretending to be Santa for hours, your mind goes places. You and your son are the sweetest pair I've ever seen, and I'd like to be part of your life someday. You can't act like you didn't feel a connection. I already know where you live. Now I just need your number. Text me whenever and maybe we can plan something. Sorry if it seems forward, but I'm the kind of guy who goes after what he wants. Happy holidays if we don't talk soon. Here's my number. Med. I wanted to tear it up and scream, but instead, I took a picture and called the police again. At least now we had a number. They told me someone would follow up once they took action. I don't remember much from when I was 6, but this is one of the memories that still shows up in my mind like it happened a couple years ago. Some childhood moments fade fast, but the ones that shake you stay with you, clear and cold, no matter how much time passes. And I know I'm not the only one who still carries a memory like that. Has anything ever happened to you during the holidays that still sits in the back of your mind, even now? I was home alone for the weekend, so my girlfriend Sophia came over to keep me company, and the whole house had that soft Christmas feeling you only get in mid-December. Holiday lights were out on every porch on the block, the air felt cold and sweet, and Sophia was in the mood to watch every Christmas movie she loved as a kid. We ordered food, opened a bottle of wine, and sat by the tree with the lights glowing in the corner of the living room. Everything felt warm and simple. We watched the Polar Express, then switched to Elf, and for a while the night felt perfect. Quiet, like nothing bad could touch us. When we ran out of wine, I told her I'd run to the liquor store down the street. Just a quick 10-minute walk. The usual cashier was there, the guy who always talks way too much, and he pulled me into a long conversation like he always did. Right in the middle of it, my phone buzzed. It was Sophia. When I answered, her voice sounded shaky in a way that made my stomach tighten. She said she kept hearing noises coming from under the living room, from the crawl space. I tried to calm her down, telling her it was probably nothing, maybe the house settling, maybe a pipe, but she asked me to stay on the phone with her until I got home. I walked faster, talking to her the whole way. When I finally stepped inside, she was curled up on the couch with the movie paused, listening hard, waiting for the noise again. When I asked if she heard anything else, she said no, then looked at me and whispered, "What if there's an animal down there?" I told her that wasn't possible, that nothing could get in from outside, trying to sound sure even though a small part of me already felt uneasy, and I tried to brush it off as nothing. I opened the new bottle of wine and we picked up the movie again, letting the lights from the tree fill the room, but only a few minutes later we both heard it, a deep, heavy thud from right under our feet, coming from the crawl space. Sophia and I locked eyes, and in that 1 second we both understood she hadn't imagined anything earlier. Something was actually down there. I tried to stay calm and said maybe it really was an animal, even though the words didn't feel true coming out of my mouth. We paused the movie again and I went to the closet where the crawl space door was tucked away. I grabbed the flashlight and climbed down slowly, staying close to the door as I scanned the place. There were boxes everywhere, pushed into tight corners, stacked high enough to block my view, the perfect spots for something to hide behind. But the smell hit me before anything else, a sharp sour stench that made my eyes water, and it told me something had been living down there for a while. I wasn't a pest expert, so all I could do was text my parents in our group chat and tell my dad he'd need to call someone the next day. As I started climbing back up, I heard something shift across the crawl space. Not a quick scurry or a tiny rustle, but something bigger, something that moved with weight. My heart jumped into my throat. I panicked, climbed faster, and slammed the door shut behind me. Sophia looked terrified when I came back, and honestly, so was I. But there was nothing we could do except sit in the living room and try to finish the movie. After Elf ended, we went to bed and somehow drifted off. Sometime in the night, I woke up with a pounding headache and walked toward the door to go to the hallway, but when I opened it just a crack, I froze. At the far end of the dark hallway stood a human silhouette, tall and still, like it had been standing there waiting. A scream almost came out of me, but instead, I shut the door as quietly as I could and locked it. Almost immediately, footsteps started moving toward our room, slow and heavy, and then the doorknob twisted. Someone tried to open it, and a low voice said hello from the other side. Sophia shot awake at the sound and started screaming, and my hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. Waiting for the police felt like it lasted forever. When they finally arrived, they searched the entire house, but the person was gone, vanished into the night before anyone could catch him. And the smell in the crawl space hadn't been in my head either. There was an actual puddle down there, which meant that man had been living under our house for who knows how long, listening to us, moving around while we slept. The cops said it was probably a drifter looking for shelter, but that didn't make it feel any less terrifying. Whoever he was, he had been watching us, walking through our home in the dark like he belonged there. My family didn't even believe the story at first, not until they saw how shaken I was. But I've never forgotten that night, and I've never gone to bed again without checking the locks twice. It's strange how one moment can stick with you forever, especially around the holidays when everything is supposed to feel warm and safe. Tell me, has anything ever happened in your home that made you check the doors one more time before going to sleep? This happened on Christmas Eve back in '95 when I was 7. And since my family is Jewish, Christmas didn't really mean anything to us. My dad was a doctor, always working holiday shifts, so he wasn't home that night. And even though our mom was technically there, she struggled with drinking back then. By the time the sky turned dark, she would already be passed out on the couch, completely unreachable, leaving my little sister and me on our own. We were sitting in front of the TV, flipping through channels, trying to keep the house from feeling too quiet, when someone knocked on the front door. I walked over, stood on my tiptoes, and looked through the glass panes, and that's when I saw him, a man in a full Santa suit, standing on our porch with a big bag slung over his shoulder. He smiled at me through the window and gave a slow wave, motioning for me to come closer. I stepped up to the door but didn't open it. Something about it didn't sit right with me. It felt strange that Santa would come to our house at all, especially when we didn't celebrate Christmas. And the longer I looked at him, the more something deep in my gut told me to stay exactly where I was. He said, "Hey kid, it's Santa, let me in, I have your presents," in this cheerful but wrong tone that made my stomach tighten. I told him Santa wasn't real, and even if he was, he wouldn't bring gifts to Jewish kids. He kept insisting he was real and said he changed the rules this year so Jewish kids could get presents too. I didn't believe a word of it. I told him we already got gifts on Hanukkah, and the second I said that, his smile faded. His whole face changed. He suddenly started demanding that I open the door, his voice losing all the fake sweetness. I told my little sister to call 911, and the moment she grabbed the phone, the man outside took off running. We did call, but the operator didn't understand what we were trying to say. Looking back, she probably thought we were just two kids excited about Santa knocking on our door, because she kept brushing us off and reminding us 911 was for real emergencies before she hung up. That moment left us completely terrified, because we had no one else to call. We were only 4 and 7, and the only numbers we knew were our home phone and 911. It was the 90s, so our dad didn't have a cell phone yet, and since he was working at the hospital, we had no clue how to reach him. And with our mom passed out upstairs, impossible to wake, we were totally on our own in that house. We prayed the man wouldn't come back, but a few minutes later he started knocking again, harder this time. His voice sounded different now, low and cold, telling us he knew the cops weren't coming and we needed to open the door or we'd be in big trouble. My sister burst into tears and ran upstairs to try to wake our mom, even though we already knew she wouldn't wake up. Standing there shaking, I did the only thing my 7-year-old brain could think of. I grabbed a bunch of candles from our menorah, lit all of them, then ran under the smoke detector. I blew them out as fast as I could and waved the smoke upward, praying the alarm would go off. As an adult, I know how dangerous that was and how easily things could have gone wrong, but back then, all I knew was that the smoke alarm automatically called 911. And thank God, it worked. The alarm blasted through the house, and within minutes, the fire department, which was just a couple blocks away, arrived. My sister came running downstairs, scared by the alarm, but I told her there was no fire and to stay with me inside. What shocked me the most was that the man didn't run this time. He sprinted straight toward the firefighters and started talking to them like everything was normal. I remember hearing him tell them he was our dad, that he dressed up as Santa to surprise us, and that he didn't have pockets for his keys, so he couldn't unlock the door to save us from the alarm. He begged them to break the door down. And the worst part was that the firefighters actually started to believe him. They warned us to step back because they were about to break in. My sister and I panicked and started crying, yelling that he wasn't our dad, that our real dad was at the hospital working, and we had no idea who this man was. We even told them we didn't celebrate Christmas. The firefighter, who was about to hit the door, stopped and asked, "You don't celebrate Christmas?" I shook my head and showed him my kippah and our menorah still sitting on the table. That was the moment everything hit me at once, and I started crying harder, telling him I set off the alarm because the police didn't believe us. Thankfully, he listened. He turned to the man and asked why Santa would show up at a Jewish home. I don't remember what the man said, but whatever excuse he gave didn't convince anyone. 2 firefighters held him down, while another called the police. They asked where our dad worked so they could contact him. When the officers arrived, they took the man into custody while one stayed with us until our dad rushed home and learned what happened. It was the first time I understood that sometimes the scariest people don't hide in the dark. They stand right on your front porch dressed like someone you're supposed to trust. When my dad finally made it home, he was furious with our mom for being passed out and missing everything, but even through the anger you could see how relieved he was that we were okay. Honestly, after that night, I was grateful the next Christmas went back to being our usual quiet, boring holiday. To this day, I really believe the only reason my sister and I are safe is because we were Jewish and didn't open that door. If we had let that man dressed as Santa into our home, there's a real chance that Christmas Eve would have ended very differently. Thinking about it still makes my stomach drop. But now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had something happen during the holidays that stayed with you? Something that felt wrong even years later?